This is kind of a warning. The competition to grab our listeners is growing, and it's not from other independent podcasters, but from the big names. And it's going to get worse. Almost every day, studying what firms are doing, you can see how this is just the beginning. But luckily, it's the big firms and the well-known individuals who may also provide us with some of the solutions. If you were a big podcast company and you signed up a major celebrity or show, where would you place your advertising budget? Into promoting your platform and all its independent content creators, or into promoting that show that you just signed up? Obvious, right? The show. Don't believe me? Here's some evidence. Go to the podcast browse section on Spotify, and for me at least, the first suggestion is a Spotify original. So one less space on the dashboard for you and for me. And who can blame them, to be honest? If I was Spotify, I'd do the same. I need a return on my investment. Good luck to them. Others are doing the same too, like Amazon exclusives and many others as well. And the fight for our ears is going to get much more intense as platforms also vie to become the YouTube of podcasts, with all of us, they hope, paying them to access podcast content in future. So is this then perhaps a lost cause? Well, if Mark Cuban is right, then no. Now, did you see my review of Mark's podcast movement talk a little while back? Basically, to cut a long story short, he says that we have to be different to stand out in future. Take Josh Gondelman's Make My Day podcast, right? Yeah, he's a name already. He already had a name. But just look at what he did with the typical podcast interview format. He added a twist to it and made it like a game show. Now, if that doesn't sound like the kind of thing that you would want to do with yours, do bear with me for a moment, because even if you don't like his approach, the logic of trying something different still holds. The questions he asks, for example, lead his guests through a story which they might well have shared in a normal one-on-one interview. But instead of asking open-ended questions and rambling on like, what do you think about crime fiction? He says something like, if you were committing a crime, what type of crime would you commit? Now that question probably grabbed your attention straight away as a listener too. It works. Then he awards points for the most uplifting answer as well. Oh, and also every guest always wins. He has a world record that always keeps getting beaten in the show. So it's not really a game show. It's just a premise to make it a little bit different. And he also offers the guest $100, I think it is, to a charity of the guest's choice. But it doesn't need to be money. We could be offering skills that a guest might value, or they might want to pass on some of your time to someone they know or a charity themselves. Now, the point is, it's a new twist on a well-used format. Punchy, impactful on you as a listener, and different. Now, okay, I hear you say, I don't want to do that. Well, how about advertising differently? Had a really great discussion on Twitter last week. Some people were saying how much abuse they got on some platforms when they post podcast ads. So I started researching abuse and how the major firms handle it. And as part of that, I actually signed up to a public relations event to learn more. But as I was looking into that, I studied a website called The Drum. And the thing that struck me was the use of humour. Now, for example, one that really struck me was one of a pineapple wearing sunglasses. Not an animated or an expensive CGI pineapple, but a literal pineapple with sunglasses. And the slogan was, where you get more than just a sad cheese sandwich. So it was a really catchy, really entertaining ad. This is rather different approach, as I say, to the one I took when I tested Facebook ads during that live show that we did a short time ago. What I'd done was I put a picture of my show logo and a few words, and perhaps a change to something more humorous, something more different might work. So I have bought a pineapple, quite literally there, and I've got some sunglasses, and I'm going to try and find a way to actually tie that into my podcast and give that a go and do an A/B test, one with my podcast logo and one with that, and see what happens. Now, of course, spending $20 on ads is never going to compete with spending $20,000, but perhaps an ad modelled on a major campaign that's already proved to be successful will have some more impact. Finally, tools. Mark Cuban mentioned building a free Amazon Alexa skill. Now, I had a look at this, and to be honest, it looks rather complex. But then I was listening to a podcast during the week called The Speaker Lab, and in it they mentioned a free tool to work out how much you should charge for speaking at events. And curious about this, I went to the website, and I was listening to podcasts on my phone, So the browser was literally only a click away from me, and I didn't have to stop listening or anything. So there was nothing there when I arrived on that website, but a simple tool. There were no annoying pop-ups, nothing spammy there, just straightforward questions that asked me about where I would be going, what I'd be talking about, the kind of organisation I'd be talking to. And I answered them, and I got through to the end, and sure enough, there was a request for an email address. But I was genuinely interested in the result. And unlike so many sites, this didn't feel, as I say, spammy. There wasn't some stupid personality test on there. So I actually signed up and I gave them my email address. Now, apart from the fact that I should be charging $1,825, I think it was, as a speaking fee if I fly to speak at an event in another country, I'd been sucked in. A simple tool at the website was myspeakerfee.com had got me on the list of the podcast. Now, of course, within hours, emails started arriving as well. I was now in the onboarding process for the podcast too. Now, here's another example. There's one called podcastgrader.headliner.app. This is from the people behind Headliner. And it is a tool to show you how visible you are online. Now, I didn't sign up to this one because there's too many other ways of actually getting this information already. So it just wasn't a strong enough proposition to get me to give over my email address. But the point is with these is that they can actually be set up relatively easily with website plugins. You know, they may not be a full Alexa skill, but it is still a tool. You can sell at these quiz type plugins to do it and then have a sign up at the end. But as I say, while it's not like Alexa, it's still, as Mark Cuban was saying, about having a tool that is a bit different and giving a reason for people to come from your podcast to take action on something else. And in this particular case, the Speaker Lab people got my email address. So would any of this actually work? Would any of these ideas, with the tools, with the advertising, would any of it actually work? Well, let's find out. Because in my next update, I'm going to start developing an ad campaign and investigate tools as well. And I'm going to test them out with you to see what happens on this very channel. So click subscribe and like on this video, wherever you're watching this now. Join me on Twitter too and on Instagram at HitPodcast2020. It's literally HitPodcast2020. And we will see what happens.